play some games in online before going to play in tournaments. So bishop to c4, knight f6, here d4. Okay. So generally, okay, you are playing Scotch Gambit directly d4 takes and then bishop c4. So small change. Here is the line. You can play Italian and then convert into Scotch Gambit. Okay, so there are some options like here instead of knight f6, bishop c5 also one of the continuation, Geico piano, and then you can prefer castle and then d4. Here, let's check it, knight f6, d4, takes, and then castle. And sacrificing the e pawn. If knight takes e4, what is the continuation?
Sir, bishop d5.
Bishop d5, then knight back, knight f6 again. Not now bishop d5. Here rook e1 is the best option. Pin d5. Now bishop into d5, queen into d5, knight c3. If pawn into queen takes queen. So queen back, there are options like queen a5 and queen h5 and queen d8. So for queen d8, simply you take with the rook and bishop to here, knight takes. If knight into knight, rook into. If f5, then rook f4 and castle, then knight into c6. If queen into knight into knight into. And pawn takes. Here black will get disconnected pawns on queen side. Okay, like and you can try to focus on weak pawns with a piece development. Rook a4 and bishop e3, knight c3, and attack on a7. Create a fast. So in the opening itself, you are getting the advantage. Okay, let's go for another option for the queen. Instead of queen d8, if queen a5, you can take with the knight this time. Okay, because to prepare discovered checks. So knight, okay, bishop to e6, then bishop to e2. A queen to here, then bishop to g5, preventing the long castle. And if h6, you can check it, the brilliant option now. Anyone can
Bishop
find?
f6.
Yes, yes. So what is the idea sacrificing this?
Pawn into knight into.
Pawn, yeah, bishop f6, yes. Pawn in, if not takes, if bishop e7.
If not takes idea,
Bishop into g7.
If bishop e7. Bishop into g7, is it okay? Like to opening up the g5? Yeah, it is good.
Bishop into d4 is this.
Bishop into d4, you take it now.
Not bishop.
Knight into, queen into. Exchange. If long castle, okay, knight into e6 takes, and then this is a okay, like huge advantage in the opening stage. 6 pawns, 5 pawns, even black got 2 disconnected pawns. Okay, so bishop f6 is the line. If takes, then knight into and winning the queen. Okay, let's go back to the here. Instead of queen a5, there is another option, queen h5. So obviously knight into, idea knight f6 winning the queen. Even mate also. For example, bishop to g4, it should be like a lost bishop to g4. Knight f6 followed by rook e8. Okay, here bishop to e6, this is the obvious move. Then still bishop to g5, preventing the castle. h6
So
then.
we can play bishop f4.
Then they will go for the castle. Long castle, ready for the long castle. We can't take c7 pawn. So with bishop g5, we can prevent and provocating opponent to play f6, which is a bad. f6, then what next?
Knight into f6.
Yeah, simply knight into f6, but yeah, you think which is better? Knight back, knight into f6, bishop into f6. You think which is better? If there is no g7, you can go for knight into f6, and the opponent will resign. So playing f6, it's a blunder. Simply bishop into f6, pawn into f6, gone. Okay, let's go back to this. After bishop g5, h6 then. You can play same move, bishop to f6, attacking the d4 and preventing the castle. If pawn into, knight into f6. So, and also preventing this bishop development. Okay, here queen f5 and the knight takes d4. Knight takes d4, queen takes d4, sacrificing the bishop. So what is the problem if takes with the pawn?
Sir, knight into f6.
Knight into f6, king e7,
D5. Knight d5.
knight d5, king back,
Knight into c7.
knight into c7, even queen takes rook also. But
Sir?
queen takes is
Sir?
there. Yeah, yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
go here? Sir, knight to f6.
Knight to f6 again. Okay, king to here.
Sir, then queen to d7. No,
Queen
no, no.
d7, king into. What next?
Queen to queen to d4.
Why you are giving the piece? To win the rook, you have option here. You have option directly. You no need to sacrifice the knight. King back, then simply knight takes. You take it any piece. Queen takes h8 or queen takes a8. This is win. Okay, let's go back to the moon. So after this one, queen a5 we checked, and queen h5 we checked. Knight into bishop e6. What is the move?
Bishop.
Bishop g5. Okay. Yeah, let's go back to the variation here. So after d4, against knight f6, d4, then pawn into here castle. Okay, let's go for one more variation here.